how do you get past that mental block? You know what I'm talking about. You're not into it. You haven't been feeling it. You feel overwhelmed that you don't have time to work out, that you're not making progress. And all these things are just coming against you in your mind. How do you push past that? Because it's very real. It happens. I know it happens for me. Well, we're going to talk about how to overcome that and push past it and say, screw it. I'm going to do this anyway in this episode. So strap in and get ready for episode 134. Let's go.
I've always been that skinny guy.
Why can't I gain muscle mass?
What do I do in the gym?
They said I'd always be skinny.
This is your complete source for how to gain lean muscle and break out of your skinny body. From nutrition to getting the most out of your workouts and everything in between. We know just how frustrating gaining muscle mass can be, but don't worry, we've got you covered. You're listening to the Bones to Bulk podcast. Hey, welcome to today's episode. My name is Brian Parody. I will be your host today, and thank you so much for tuning in. I know that your time is valuable, and the fact that you've chosen to listen to this podcast amongst all the thousands out there means the world to me. So I really do appreciate it. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here, and for my return listeners, thanks for coming back. It means the world. If you've not been over to bonestobulk.com, I have a complete free meal plan. It's an entire week's worth of eating, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, recipes. All the calories are laid out in it. It's free for the taking. You'll see it right there on the homepage at bonestobulk.com. You'll put in your email address. It'll be delivered to your inbox. Easy peasy, right? All right, with that being said, let's dive into today's episode. So, mental blocks, they are tough because, physical, we can push past things that stand in our way. The body's capable of so much more, but our mind is such a key player in all this. And we hit stages, different periods where we just have no motivation to work out. We're tired, we're worn down, we've been doing the same thing, and maybe we're in that plateau stage, and it can get very frustrating of not seeing our results. But there's some key things that we can do to help with our mindset, because we've got to keep our mindset on track, just like we have to keep our health and fitness on track. And that's a key part of it. So how do we do that? What things can we implement to make sure that our minds stay in the game? Well, number one is make sure you're taking care of your mental health, obviously, right? And how does that work? What does that mean? For me personally, it means doing things outside of fitness. It means reading, listening to motivational videos, listening to podcasts that encourage and lift me up, being very cautious of what I allow in my Facebook feed. Trust me, I am no stranger to that unfollow or unfriend button. We all know those people that just every post is negative or what's wrong with the world or news articles or you know which one I'm talking about. I immediately unfollow or unfriend them because I don't need that constantly in front of my face. There's enough things that constantly combat us every day, and the things that I can control, I'm going to control, and that's one of them. Two, I don't flood my mind with news or anything like that. I'm always choosing to put positive things in front of my mind. Now, that doesn't mean that I stay blind to what's going on. I do occasionally check up and read articles online, but I'm not watching the news every night or anything like that, because nothing against that if you do it, but I think that it can get overwhelming after a while. So be cautious of what you're surrounded with, what you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're taking in the form of reading, because it does have an effect. It may not seem like it, but that little bit here and the little bit there and the little bit that keeps coming in, it eventually wears us down. It really can. So I say all that to say be cautious of what you allow into your mind. Guard it. We don't just let anything walk into our home, but with the day and age in which we live, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love this age of social media, and it allows us to do so many things, allows me to connect with y'all, but there's things that you don't want to allow into your life. And that's okay to admit, that's okay to say, there's nothing wrong with that. And you don't have to make this big, bold statement I am not going to listen to the, just action speaks louder than words, There's enough noise out there. Lessen the noise. Now, number two thing to help is mindfulness. Now, I'm not trying to get all weird here, but the art of meditation or yoga is extremely beneficial because it helps us connect with ourselves. I've been doing yoga now for about 2 months, and all the physical benefits aside, like not waking up sore in the morning and being able to lift heavier and so many things that it's benefited in the fitness realm, but the mental, it helps me be more in tune with my body, with what I'm feeling, with if something feels off. I'm way more in tune with it than I used to be. Meditation, it allows you to look deep inside of yourself and kind of pull out some things that maybe we bury. So make sure that you're taking care of your mindfulness state. Now, another element that may seem kind of odd in this, but I think is really important, is getting back to what stirs you. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe as a kid, as a teenager, there was just something that like made you light up. Maybe it still does. Maybe when you talk about it, you still get excited or you like to remember it. For me, I was huge into knights and castles when I was a teenager. Like I was obsessed. When I was little, I wanted to be a knight and all that. And that was my dream and just obsessed with it. And that evolved into kind of fantasy and Lord of the Rings and all that, like huge Lord of the Rings nerd. Huge. I could go on and on about that, but I promise I won't. But it's super important to tap into those things. And I'm not saying we have to like divulge in all these things and that we don't have time for. Like, I'm not saying that, but tap into them sometimes. It's okay. Getting out your guitar and playing it for a little bit helps calm your mind and relieve stress, then do it. If losing yourself in a story does, then do that. If going for a hike does it, then do that. If getting out and doing some woodworking does it, do that. If painting does it, do that. Do something that is creative, that stirs you, that brings life, because that is so beneficial for our entire well-beings, for our mental state, which translates into our physical state. And it's something that I think gets overlooked far too often because, we're too busy or we're adults. We can't, partake in that thing that we used to do when we were children and didn't know any better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, throw that garbage aside. I read a story recently about this guy, super successful lawyer. I forget if I think he was in LA or New York. Really, really successful, like did well with it, but absolutely hated his profession. Absolutely hated it. Like dreaded waking up every day. And he was always fascinated with Legos. Like who wasn't? Like I loved Legos, but I that kind of faded. Like, don't get me wrong. If there's a couple Legos out and my kids are playing, I'll probably sit down and build something. But this guy was fascinated with Legos, with actually creating and the structure. And what he did, he ended up becoming a Lego architect. He now works for Lego, designing kits, building stuff, like all that. He quit being a lawyer and pursued his dream. And I'm not saying that for all of us, that's what it comes down to, like quitting what we do and going and doing this crazy thing. But what I'm saying is that creative side of us is important. And when we neglect that, we do ourselves a great disservice. And I think a little piece of us dies because there's something in that task or that creative outlet that sparks joy and sparks life in us. And whether it's meant to be a career or whether it's just meant to be something that brings us enjoyment for the sake of enjoyment, because there's nothing wrong with that, it's important that we tap into that. So I just wanted to share that. I know today's a little bit different than kind of typically, but it's so important because you've got to keep your mental game on point because it drives us for the physical. When we're on fire mentally, we're on fire physically. So I hope this helped. If so, please let me know. I love to connect with you, and the way I do that is through social media. So whether you are on Facebook, whether you are on TikTok, whether you're on Instagram or Pinterest, send me a message. Hit me up on there. Follow me and connect with me because I love connecting with all of you out there. That's the whole point of this. So it's at Bones to Bulk everywhere. Direct message me. The best place is IG, Facebook. We have an incredible group of people that you can connect with and join in their journey and help encourage one another. So lots of great outlets out there. But again, hit me up on any social media outlet. Again, at Bones to Bulk. Remember, whatever block is currently in your mind or in your physical realm, you can overcome it. You can get past it. And sometimes it may just take doing some things out of the box, like tapping into that creative side. But remember, you've got this.